The Video Stabilization plugin in Vegas Pro enables you to rescue footage that might otherwise be too shaky to use. To apply the Video Stabilization plugin, right-click the timeline clip event that holds the media on your timeline and choose Media Effects from the context menu. In the plugin chooser, click the Vegas Video Stabilization plugin from the list and click the Add button. Then click OK. In the Media Effects window, click the Stabilize button. Vegas Pro analyzes your clip and determines what stabilization settings should be applied. In a great number of cases, you might be done at this point. However, if you feel that the stabilization is almost but not quite right, adjust the smoothing slider to see if you can improve the results. The smoothing setting is a non-destructive parameter, which means that you don't have to reanalyze the footage in order to see the results of different smoothing settings. If you have a particularly difficult stabilization task, you may need more control over the process. Choose Professional from the User View drop-down list. You may need to resize the Media Effects window to see all of the parameters. To do this quickly, double-click the window's title bar. Under the Parameters section, notice that the Method parameter is not available. This parameter is a destructive one, so if you want to change it, you'll need to reanalyze the footage. To do that, click the Clear Motion Data button. Now you can choose between Accurate Method and Fast Method. The Accurate method should give you the best results in most cases, although there are some peculiar exceptions, while the Fast method will get you results a bit more quickly. Use the Motion Compensation drop-down list to select the type of compensation you want to apply to the clip. For instance, say you're shooting with a handheld camera, so you have some general handheld shakiness, but you don't move closer to the subject, zoom in with the camera, or twist the camera in your hand. Then, translation motion compensation may be all you need. If you're moving the camera a lot to capture a moving object, you may have movement of many different types. In such a case, the warp option may be the best. Once you've made your choices, click the Analyze Motion button. When analysis is complete, the additional non-destructive parameters are once again available. We took a look at the smoothing parameter back in basic mode. Essentially, this setting determines the time span, in seconds, of the video around the current frame which will be considered during the stabilization for that frame. If you want to adjust smoothing and zoom independently, deselect the Auto Zoom checkbox. Now adjust the additional zoom setting as you like. Use the additional rotation parameter if you feel you need more rotation correction. You can use this to correct a horizon that's not perfectly horizontal. Click the Additional Translation drop-down button to access the position field. Drag the target within the field to reposition your video within the video frame. Sometimes you just can't or don't want to zoom into your footage as much as you need to in order to avoid a gap between the edges of the footage and the edge of your live video area. By default, these gaps show up as transparent areas, so if nothing is on the track below, you see a black area, while if there is video on the track below, you see that video showing through. If transparency isn't what you want, you can set the Edge Filling parameter to a different option. Choose Mirror Padding if you want a mirror image of the edge of the video to fill the space. Choose Repeat to fill the space with material from the opposite edge. And finally, choose Clamp to Edge if you want to stretch the edge pixels of your video to the edge of the live area. Finally, sometimes adding a motion blur can provide better results for fast camera movements. Select the Add Motion Blur checkbox and then adjust the threshold setting, which determines the amount of motion that must be detected before the blur is applied. Notice that many of these parameters can be automated, so if one section of your footage needs aggressive correction while another needs less, you can use the same automation tools and techniques that you use for other OFX plugins to automate the settings to change over time. If you want even more control over your stabilization settings, choose Expert from the User View drop-down list. You now have access to every possible parameter. You'll need to clear the motion data and analyze the footage again to access some of the new parameters, while others are non-destructive and thus available immediately. Clear the motion data now so that we can discuss all parameters. The choice you make in the Motion Compensation list will affect how many parameters become available later, so for now choose Warp from the list to provide access to all parameters. Adjust the size of the region of interest with the width and height controls. When using these controls, think of the region of interest as a rectangle with its center point in the very center of the video output area. A setting of 1.0 on both controls creates a rectangle that is exactly the same size as your entire video frame. As you change the width or height, the change happens around the center. In this way, you always limit the region of interest to a bigger or smaller area around the center of the video frame, thus expanding or limiting the area where the stabilizer analyzes trackable feature points. This can help you improve stabilization by excluding random movements at the edges of your video. It can also focus your stabilization efforts on the most important portions of your video, which are often located more toward the center of the live area. The number of grid settings works together with the number of points per cell to help achieve better results based on the type of footage you need to stabilize. Each grid cell contains the specified number of stabilization points. The more points you analyze, the longer the analysis will take. The optimal number of points can depend on the subject of the video. For instance, a low grid cell count combined with a high number of points in each cell can be effective in stabilizing highly textured areas of the video. You can choose between the default Lucas-Kinnaid calculations and the sum of absolute differences calculations in the Tracker Type drop-down list. Once you've made your choices, click the Analyze Motion button. Notice that in Expert Mode, you have far more control over how smoothing is applied. To deactivate smoothing in any parameter, deselect the appropriate checkboxes. As you can see, you can take as much control as you want over the stabilization process.